So I did the plays, and a couple of films came along. I got the tail end of live television. I got the tail end of radio. I was fortunate enough to do Billy Budd with Peter Ustinov for the QXR network, and Cyril Richard, whom I had worked for, I was fortunate enough to do the radio show. This was in '63, of Visit to a Small Planet. And then I did some things for Ted Bell and that actor. I can't remember his name.
Does it ring a bell?
Bowman. He was one of the producers on Theater 5, where I worked with Ralph Bell and Ralph Camargo. Oh. He was a B movie star.
Frankie Thomas?
No,
he was a writer for that.
The B movie star actor. I had seen him in so many things, and all of a sudden there he was, you know, doing a lot of radio. And I met some wonderful people, and I got some theater work out of that, like from Ralph Bell, was directing a summer stock package of a Freddie Knott play, and boom, boom. And it started for me, some of the theater casting directors that I had worked for started casting films. And some of the guys I had worked for in commercials, like Harold Becker and Zeif and Cimino, they all started directing movies. So you'd get, you know, small parts in the New York area, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, I mean, as far, you know, a few years down the line, my first kind of, I'd done some smaller films in New York, like with Richard Conte, people like that, and so forth. With Susan Haywood, I had a small part. And I got this call, what are you doing for the next month, from Isabel Halliburton, who used to cast for Jose Quintero. And I said, well, I'm at liberty. She said, well, you may be in All the President's Men, as James McCord. I'll let you know tomorrow. She called me the next day. It was a Thursday, and she said, we're flying you down. You're going to start Monday. And I got down there, and they gave me a call sheet to look at, and it wasn't my name, but James McCord. It was a guy, remember Richard Todd? Yeah. The guy that was on The Big Valley with Barbara Stanwyck? He had passed away. And so they needed somebody really quick. And that got me a big in, because my agent then had something to use. So I started, Kojak came to New York. I worked on Kojak. Jerry London came. I worked on several things in New York. And I ran into a director in New York who was going out to direct a Rockford File. And it was one of the few that were being done on location. And they saw a little film clip, and they brought me all the way out. And I did that. And as far as the sci-fi career, it's something that just kind of happened to me. I was doing these other plays and films, and every once in a while, I'd get a call to do something like the Star Trek or the Next Generation or the Sequest or Trancers or I Married a Monster from Outer Space or V, all this, and Buffy, amongst all of the other episodic, and like did China Syndrome, Private Benjamin, Sergeant Bilko. I did 53 pictures. And I would say with the television and the pictures and the miniseries and the MOWs, I probably made over 300 appearances in films, television, and 200 appearances in the theater, plus commercials, that I had done on occasions. But I really have to thank the Army, the Army Signal Corps, because it gave me the training I needed. I had been a theater actor, and it gave me the training I needed to work in films. And they started me like with, yes, sir. What, would you like a piece of this? The way they started me in live television, it was the same way. I worked the original Phil Silver show. And I started as just special business, like you've got to go over there and pick up the book and bring it back. Or when you come out of the booth where you make a recording, send to your mother, go by him and you say, well, I'm sorry, Sergeant. That was it. And they slowly, that's what happened in New York. They took you and they slowly built you up to see if you would have not only credibility, but if you could carry the load. And then you went from that, you went to they used to have a way to pay you called under 5. If you had under 5 lines, you made a lower amount of money. As soon as you had over 5, then you'd make, at that time, SAG minimum was $90 a day. And when you're making $40 off Broadway, $90. And I remember, you know, like a buddy of mine, he got like, you know, Andy and I had been on the road. Andy came in, he replaced Tony Perkins on Broadway and Look Home with Angel. They saw him, Arthur Penn saw him, and put him in Miracle Worker, playing the brother. And he says, Jesus, they're going to pay me $749 a week. And no, that was unheard of. Because, you know, at that time, in between there, we were paying a nickel for a cup of coffee. It was 15 cents. We were paying for, we had cold water flats, all of us. There was no hot water. The tub was in the kitchen, and the toilet was in the hall. And we were spending all our money going to class. But it was great, because we were in New York, and you know, what do you need money for? You're a skinny kid who weighs 148 pounds. You go into the automat for a nickel cup of coffee and a sandwich for 20 cents. Or you can go into these Irish bars and have a beer, and at the end of the bar you can have corned beef and cabbage and a ham sandwich. They don't charge you. So you found out all these places you go into, you had to spend a nickel. You know, and my first apartment was in Alphabet City on East 10th Street, 5 floors up, $19 a month. Ooh. And I had a roommate, so we could save our money.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because and a guy that used to make the rounds with me, he lived out in Brooklyn. His mother used to make the sandwiches for us. And we bought these $1.75 black cardboard briefcases to make the rounds with our 8x10s and resumes. And during, you know, we'd make a break. We made all these plans. You could actually knock on doors. They'd kick you out, but you could get in. And every once in a while they'd say, wait a minute, kid, get your ass in here. And, you know, you might get a job. But we would go to the automat, buffalo nickel for a cup of coffee. We'd sit down and have our sandwich, and nobody bother us.
I got you, but
Lee Strasberg was $3 a class.
But when you're talking about off-Broadway before, I mean, it just seemed that, like, in the 50s and 60s, it was just a fertile ground, because they were importing a lot of the, you know, your Beckett's, your Ionescos, and Genets, and Ennuis, and the like, and you just don't see that anymore. And
I did Electra. One of the first things I did, Walter Kerr reviewed it. I did Electra off-Broadway, and I played a role called, I think it was Pilates, and Walter Kerr gave it a review. And he said about Orestes. Orestes should have gone up behind, you know, because Electra's his sister, and tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Guess who, sis?" Walter Kerr, you know. And then Brooks Atkinson came, and I got a very nice review. Because evidently he said Richard Hurd was very well composed as Pilates. And I put a D-E in front of it, decomposed. Put it up on the bulletin board. And then I was we did two Terrence Rattigan one-actors. We did Harlequinade and the other thing. And I was very fortunate because Philip Burton's foster father, Richard Burton's foster father, Philip, directed them. And I was a very poor actor, and he gave me a half scholarship to his Shakespeare class, which was being held, a 12-week thing. He might say, I don't have any goddamn money when you're Shakespeare class. What do you got, kid? You know, so he didn't speak like that, of course. And he helped me with my very first Shakespeare experience. He got me through this, he got me through that, and then I ended up with a group, Helen Hayes, the Helen Hayes Repertory Theater Group. And she sponsored it and put it all together, and we went on the road, and we did, I was going to say Kiss Me, Kate. We did Taming of the Shrew, Twelfth Night, we did Hamlet. So I was fortunate in getting all of this wonderful experience in the theater. You know, it grounded you, and then plus the summer stock. You had to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to get a summer stock job. So I didn't even know what Hollywood was, and I didn't care. We were in the theater, and that was it, but I started doing these things.
C-O-L